is about 21st century pedagogy. And no, I'm not going to talk about remote learning. Hopefully our current crisis will pass soon and we can all get back to the classroom. So I won't really be talking about remote learning. I will be talking about the concepts that we want to teach in a 21st century classroom. So let me first go over our table of contents. We have first I'm going to talk about the history of education a little bit. Then I'm going to talk about technological change and education. And I'm going to do some demonstrations of kind of modern skills. The three demonstrations I will do will be a geodata application, a geodata computer application. I will do an example of artificial intelligence engineering, but just a very basic example, don't worry. And this is just to show some concepts. So we're not going to learn about artificial intelligence too much. It's just some of the basic concepts. And then lastly, I will do one example of natural language processing, which is also a type of computation. But really, I'm doing this seminar to talk about things we can do in the classroom. So section 3 will be about the pedagogy of creative problem solving. I believe this is a great way to improve the verbal reasoning skills and the mathematical reasoning skills of our students in Bhutan. Number 4, I will do some creative problem solving activities with you all. Hopefully we can have some volunteers to participate, some brave volunteers to share their answers with everybody. And the 4 activities we're going to do, well, we're really going to do 2. We're going to do Scattergories and Mathetron. And then I will show you Scrabble and Grammar Scrabble. These are great activities for any type of classroom in Bhutan. Then finally, we'll have a short conclusion and a discussion. So part 1, the history of education. So how are modern education systems different from education systems in the past? And I'm talking the long past. How are education systems different? Well, let's look at a picture to get an idea. We have this beautiful book right here, and it looks like this book is in Latin language, and it's lovely, these designs. It's quite beautiful. But what you might notice is that it's handwritten. Somebody wrote it with their hands. Why? We couldn't really do a printing press back then. This was before we had technology to print all sorts of books for us to read. And historically, most people who knew how to write were in religious institutions or maybe a few small universities, but most of the time people couldn't read because there were no books, because books were all handwritten. It's hard to believe, all handwritten, and paper was very difficult to make, and books were extremely rare and expensive. So as a result, most people did not learn how to read, most people in the world. And how can we learn to read if there's nothing to read? So if we look historically, we have most people who were in religious institutions that were learning to read and write. And here we have a picture of medieval Europe in maybe a Christian monastery where people are writing and reading. And I believe in the Himalayas, in Tibet and Bhutan, it was much the same. We have people in the monasteries and the religious institutions, and they are the few people who know how to read and write properly. And we also have some examples of maybe medical textbooks or other types of stories, but mostly it was religious texts. I also have one example of a medical textbook from Tibet. And this is quite amazing because at the time, maybe 200, 300 years ago, Tibet had very advanced medical technology compared to the rest of the world. But as you see, a lot of the writing is done by hand. So very few people had access. There was very little accessibility to the beauty of the written word. This is something that changed though. What changed? The printing press. It's an amazing invention, and it was invented in 1440 in Germany. And this changed everything. Why? Suddenly, we don't have the same kind of constraints. We don't have to write every book by hand anymore. We have entire factories that are printing books, printing newspapers. This is amazing. Now everybody can learn to read. Everybody can have the written word. And this changed education a lot. Now we have school systems because books are more accessible. I will show you some old pictures and paintings. I believe this one is from Italy. This would be maybe 200 years ago or something in a traditional classroom in Italy. Look at all these books. This was impossible before because normal young students could not afford to buy handwritten books. They were rare and expensive. But now, because of the printing press, this amazing technological transformation, my goodness, we have so many more options. And this is a picture from Qing Dynasty in China. We see students with their books, students with their books. Here we have a picture of maybe a naughty teacher. And we see the students with their books. This is a picture, a cartoon from 19th century England. But what I want you to take away from this is that mass literacy would be impossible without the printing press. The printing press changed everything. It's quite amazing. And now we have so much more literacy in the world because we live in a world of books. How wonderful. So if we look at this chart, we have 1800 and about 90% of people cannot read. We have 90% of the population is illiterate. But over time, as our education systems improve, it goes down, down, down. And now we have so many people who know how to read. It's about 90% of people know how to read now. That's quite amazing. And this is all thanks to the printing press. It's quite amazing. So when we have a world of books, when we're in our world of books that we can thank the printing press for, we have certain styles of pedagogy. In a world of books, rote learning or memorization, that's a very useful approach to education. I think most of us were educated this way with rote learning and memorization. And why is it good in a world of books? Well, I can't carry my books everywhere. I can't carry my giant library with me up the hill. That's too difficult. So it's okay to memorize things. That's fine. But things are changing a little bit. So rote learning was the normal approach to education in most of the world, but something has changed. What? Technology. Just like we had the transformation that occurred because of the printing press, we have a new technological change. The internet, it's changing everything. And we as a community of educators, we need to adapt our pedagogical styles. So I'm going to talk now in section 2 about technological change and education. And I want you to think about the question, how has technological change impacted the education systems of the world? Remember, the printing press changed everything. And now, the technological change of the printing press led to a style of pedagogy called rote learning. And as I said, most of us, we grew up with this kind of rote learning, and it was great for a world of books, but things are changing, and the internet is changing everything. So now we have the technological change of the internet. And how do we adapt our style of pedagogy? I don't actually know. This is something we have to learn together as a community of educators. And so we will try new things. We will adapt our styles of teaching, and we will try to create opportunities for our students to excel. So we're experiencing a transition right now, just like the invention of the printing press, the spread of the internet has changed our style of education. So we have a big challenge as educators. So students don't need to memorize every fact anymore. Why? We have our smartphones, we have our internet. We don't need to memorize every single fact. But students do need to understand how to thrive in a world that is changing socially and technologically. So the world is changing fast, and how do we prepare our students for this world so they can thrive? It's an important question in education that we are working together to find out. Luckily, we don't have to change too much because literacy and mathematics are still the foundation of education. Just like our traditional educations that we had with rote learning, literacy and mathematics are still important. But we also have many new tools that we need to incorporate into our systems. But I would suggest, because now we don't have to memorize everything because we have all this amazing technology, we have to teach creative problem solving instead. So in our classes, I will discuss this more later, we're going to teach creative problem solving. That is one approach to preparing students for technological change. So what is creative problem solving? In fact, we do creative problem solving all the time in our day-to-day lives. But doing it in the classroom, preparing classroom activities, is a little bit of a challenge. Anyway, creative problem solving, the definition, it's a type of critical thinking in which we use our knowledge and resources to solve new problems. What do I mean by resources? I mean, we don't have to memorize everything. We can use a dictionary, we can use an app, we can use a computer, we can use all sorts of resources now. We need to understand how we use these resources. So why do we teach creative problem solving? We want to prepare students for a changing world, firstly. Secondly, we have activities, creative problem solving activities that can strengthen students' reasoning and mathematical reasoning skills, or their verbal reasoning and mathematical reasoning skills. And these verbal reasoning and mathematical reasoning skills are the foundation of modern skills, such as computer programming. So even if you are in a classroom without many resources in a rural area, you can teach the verbal reasoning and mathematical reasoning skills that students need to do very advanced technology like computer programming. We can start with the basics anywhere in the world, even in the most rural village, but that will give the foundation so that students can learn more advanced topics. So even if we don't have expensive technology in the classroom, strong creative problem-solving abilities enable students to learn these new skills and technologies more quickly. So things we do in the classroom are creative problem-solving in the classroom. It helps our verbal reasoning and mathematical reasoning. And that will enable us, that will allow us to do all sorts of modern skills like computer science, data analysts, I don't know, maybe even video game design. There are all sorts of modern skills that we do, the foundation of which is verbal reasoning and mathematical reasoning. So I will give you a demonstration of some modern skills. The first demonstration I will do is a geodata app, show you how to make an app like on your phone. And then I will do an example of artificial intelligence engineering. And then I will do an example of natural language processing. So I will stop, I will share a different screen. Oh, actually, there we go. So this is my programming workspace. So what I want you to see here, maybe it's very small letters on some of your screens, but what I want you to see here is that this is a mix of verbal reasoning and mathematical reasoning. This is a computer program that I wrote to make a geodata app. So what is geodata? It's just geographic data. So let's see what happens when I run my geodata application. There we go. We have a beautiful map of Bhutan. How lovely. And we can click on it. It's interactive. And what do these colors mean, I wonder? It looks like the largest gewogs are very dark color, and the smallest gewogs are very light color. And they have their names and everything. So I want to make some changes to my app, though. I'm going to get rid of the labels because it's hard to read. Maybe I will make it bigger. And maybe I will change the colors because I think red is a little too dramatic. So I will change some colors. I will double the size. And I will take away the labels because we can already see it. So let's see what happens to my application. Beautiful. So this is an example of the type of skills that you can use with verbal reasoning and mathematical reasoning. Verbal reasoning and mathematical reasoning together, we can do computation and all sorts of interesting applications. And I'm sure you can imagine all the applications we can do in Bhutan with a map like this. We can put other data in it. We can look at grain production. We can look at hydroelectricity production. We can create all sorts of applications with this. But in order to do something like this, something more complicated, we need to learn the basics, and we can teach the basics in our classrooms. So the second example I will give is about artificial intelligence engineering. And what is artificial intelligence? Really, that's a philosophical question. I don't know. It's hard to decide when a computer is intelligent. But in this case, I'm going to teach a computer program about food. And how am I going to teach a computer program about food? I'm going to feed the computer program a list of recipes. We have the title of the recipe. This looks like vegan chocolate coconut cookies. Ooh, delicious. We have ingredients. We have our instructions. And let's look at how many recipes I have. I have 100,000, or I have 120,000 recipes. So I'm going to feed these recipes to my computer, and we will look at the results. So this is kind of like an artificial mind that we're making for our computer. And from the recipes, our computer program learned all sorts of different words from the recipes, and it mapped the relationships between the words. So if we want to look at the words, we can zoom in a little bit. What do we have here? Lemons, clementines, oranges, limes. It looks like the computer learned about citrus fruits. It learned this category. We learned about, down here, it looks like it learned about walnuts. So I did not explain to the computer anything about citrus fruits, but after the computer read 120,000 recipes, then it learned by itself the category of citrus fruits. This is very fascinating. Is this intelligence? I don't know, but it's certainly something. And this type of application is used all the time by companies like Facebook, like WeChat. Many of the apps you have in your phone are using artificial intelligent systems like this, but normally we don't look at it in this way. Normally it's happening behind the screen. It's unseen. So I will change my screen again. The last example I will give of a modern skill is not really a completed example because unfortunately, I don't know Dzongkha. I wish I knew Dzongkha. It's a beautiful language. I have heard many long speeches in Dzongkha, but I do not understand it. So unfortunately, as much as I try, I cannot do natural language processing in Dzongkha. I can make my little dictionary, but it doesn't really do anything, unfortunately. And the reason I'm showing you this is I would like more students in Bhutan to be inspired to learn about computer programming. Why? Because we need to incorporate Dzongkha into intelligent systems. We need to teach computers Dzongkha as well. So I hope that more Bhutanese students will start to learn computer programming. And another reason I wanted to show you this is to emphasize the point that together mathematical reasoning and verbal reasoning, they combine to allow us to do amazing things like artificial intelligence, language processing, and applications for our phone. A lot of amazing business opportunities, and a lot of amazing educational opportunities. We can do that in Bhutan. We just have to lay the foundation in the school system. So I will go back to the rest of my presentation. So the takeaway from, let me make it full screen. There we go. The takeaway from the demonstrations should be memorization is not necessary for creative problem solving. To make those applications, I did not memorize anything. I just needed to have good mathematical reasoning, good verbal reasoning, and I need to know how to use the internet so I can look for answers to questions that I might be finding. Finally, I wanted to show you those applications to show that we need young Bhutanese to be prepared to learn these modern skills. How? We teach creative problem solving in the classroom. So if you want to learn to code yourself, I started to learn to code when I was maybe 29, so it's never too late. You can start learning to code right now and make your own amazing applications. You could make a smartphone application, you could make a computer application, you could make a business application, all sorts of possibilities. And if you would like to start learning for free, you can go to Khan Academy. There's khanacademy.org. And there's also codeacademy.com. And both of these have lessons for basic programming. And you, after a couple months of practice, you can start to make some amazing applications. I would really like to see what Bhutanese data engineers will create for the world. And I think the best programming language to start with, if you're going to teach yourself, is maybe Python. Python is not the snake, it's the name of a programming language that we use to make these applications. So now I'm going to talk about the pedagogy of creative problem solving. So how might teachers design classroom activities to improve their students' creative problem solving abilities? Well, I think it's good to have activities in class where there is more than one solution. If we only have one solution, one answer, then that's not really creative. There's always only one solution. If we want to teach creativity, we need to create situations in which there is more than one solution. Hopefully, I will make this more clear with my examples later. So the types of activities we want to do to teach creative problem solving are activities that require both knowledge and resources. Remember, we don't live in a world of only books anymore. In the past, rote memorization was an okay idea. But now we have all sorts of resources and the internet. And so now we need to learn creative problem solving. So finally, when I'm making activities for the classroom that use creative problem solving, I try to make collaborative activities. And this is very important in Bhutan because in a lot of our classrooms, we are dealing with mixed ability classrooms. We have our superstar, brilliant students who know every answer. It's very fun to teach those classes sometimes with the superstar student. But at the same time, we also have students with a lot of struggles with mathematics, with reading. There are many reasons that students struggle, but our job as teachers is to create an inclusive classroom to make sure everybody can learn and participate. So I like to do creative problem-solving activities that are inclusive so we can work together. So how do we know that this type of activities is good for learning? How do we know this? Well, we can look at your brain. So this is a machine called an fMRI machine, a functional magnetic resonance imaging machine. And it looks at the iron in the blood in your brain. And because of that, we can look at brain activity. And this is how scientists and educators like ourselves are working together to show what kind of problem solving is the best workout for our brains. Because normally, if we're working out our body, we can see our big muscles, but we have to look inside of our heads to see the workouts. So when we're doing creative problem solving, we can see all sorts of brain activity for different types of problems. And scientists and educators, we are working together to find out what the best problem solving activities are. I will show some of my examples that are good for a Bhutanese classroom. And honestly, perhaps the best creative problem solving activity is creative writing. So creative writing has been shown to increase brain activity tremendously. It's a very complicated task, even to write a simple story. And I would love to give an entire lecture on creative writing, but maybe another time. The main point is that science community and education community are working together using cutting edge techniques like fMRIs to find what is the best technique for doing good exercise for your brain. So we need to think of this as the creative problem solving workout. Because when we use our verbal reasoning skills and mathematical reasoning skills, if we have a strong foundation, like I said, then we can build modern skills on top. We cannot do computer science if we don't know the basics of mathematical reasoning. And it's not that I expect every Bhutanese student in the world to become a data analyst or a computer scientist. Not necessarily, that would be cool. But what I would like to see is Bhutanese students to have the options, to have the freedom of choice and opportunity to pursue whatever careers they feel will be most fulfilling to them. And I think that we can build our education system so that we can create many different types of opportunities for our students. So a lot of these skills, these modern skills, they require computers. But when we're doing creative problem solving in the classroom, we don't always have the finest technology. So no computers, no problem. The kind of activities that are good for creative problem solving in the classroom, they don't need computers. So I would like to go through some activities that I love to use in the classroom personally, and hopefully we can get some participants, maybe some volunteers. I will ask you to practice at home when we do some of these activities, and maybe you will share your answers with the group. So we will see. Let's see what happens. So the first game I will discuss, it's a game, is called Scattergories. And the goal of Scattergories is to improve students' knowledge of English spelling and vocabulary. And this game could be adapted for Dzongkha as well. So the student profiles I usually do for class 4 and above. And the required tools, no, we don't need a supercomputer. We need Blackboard, we need chalk, we need pens, we need paper. And if you have dictionaries in your classroom, that's great to let the students use the dictionaries. And the time required, we usually do many rounds in one class, is about 10 to 15 minutes per round. So we're going to pretend that we have our imaginary classroom that we're going to do this with. We need to divide our classroom into teams, and each team sits in their area with their table, and they choose one leader to write everything down on a piece of paper. So this is a team activity. You want to work together. Next, we choose our categories. The teacher gets to choose the categories. And what do I mean by categories? Well, I usually have item categories like animals, fruits and vegetables, country, national capital, gewogs, etc. I have grammar categories, verb, adjective, abstract noun. I have suffix categories. The suffix categories are probably the most important for verbal reasoning. So I always encourage you to have suffix categories. So let's pretend that this is my blackboard in the classroom. We have our categories. These I chose for the example. I have country, fruit and vegetable, animal, T-I-O-N word. This means my word needs to end with T-I-O-N. We need a word that ends with L-Y. We need a word that ends with O-U-S. And we need a word that ends with full. We need a word that ends with less. And this can be tricky. So after we set up our board and we have each team here, maybe we have 4 teams, maybe we have 5 teams, but with our imaginary classroom that we're doing on Zoom, we're going to pretend we have 3 teams. So next, your job as a teacher is you can choose a random letter. So I suggest that you don't choose a rare letter, an unusual letter like J or K, because there are not many words that start with J, K, Q, X, Y, and Z. So I usually choose a different letter that's more common. And I like to do this very dramatically. Before the students start writing their answers, I say our letter is, in this case, our letter is B. So what the students have to do now is they have about 5 to 10 minutes to write their list of words. So let's pretend our students have written their words. So for country, we have team 1 has Bhutan, team 2 has Bolivia, team 3 also has Bolivia. We have fruit and vegetable. Team 1 has banana, team 2 has beet, and team 3 has blueberry. And then we have for animal, bear, boa, buffalo. It looks like for T-I-O-N, team 1 didn't have an answer. That's difficult for B. And then it looks like team 2 had an advanced word, benediction. But why would a young student know this word? Let's pretend that we're teaching class 6 or class 7. This is a very advanced word, benediction. Well, when I play this game with my class, I let the students use a dictionary. It's fine. It's still a difficult game, even with a dictionary. And it's very fun to watch them flip around the book to see all the different possibilities. And honestly, when I play this game with students, I myself learn so many different words. And I have to check my phone to make sure that I'm spelling it correctly, because the students are very clever and they come up with all sorts of different vocabulary words that I haven't heard before. So we see some advanced words like in the OUS category. We have bulbous, we have beauteous, we have boisterous. What fun. So how do we actually create a score now that our answers are on the board? And so after the students finish, I say time's up, and they come up and I write their answers on the board. How do we do scoring? Well, Scattergories scoring rules. Teams may not have the same words. Ooh, this makes it tricky. So you have to think about what word you want to put on your list, but you also need to think about what the other teams are putting on their list. If you choose the most obvious answer, I'm sure that somebody will have the same answer as you, and then nobody gets the point. So this is a good example of critical thinking, because you have to think about your answer, but also the potential answers of your classmates. So you have to be extra clever to find a good choice for your word. So you do receive 1 point if you have a correct word that is categorized. So let's look at our screen. Let's look at our board to see how we score. So if we go down, we give 0 points. Bolivia is a country, but team 2 and team 3, they had the same answer. That means nobody gets the points, unfortunately. Here we have the same problem. We have beautifully, beautifully, and those are spelled correctly. They're correct answers. But remember, you have to think about what the other teams are doing. So, and we also have some words that Borfless is not actually a word. I just invented it. So you also have to check the dictionary sometimes in case the students are trying to trick you. So I often have to double check on my phone or in a dictionary. So is there any way we can get 3 brave volunteers to present their answers? But first we will all play together. So I want you to take out a paper and pen. I will play too. So don't feel shy. I brought my whiteboard, my personal whiteboard. And we're going to try to play this game. But first, I'm going to ask Mr. Tenzing to choose a letter for us. Is Mr. Tenzing there?
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Let's go with C.
So our letter is going to be C. So I'm going to give everybody about 5 minutes to fill in all these categories with a word that starts with the letter C. Can you do it? I think you can. And you can use dictionaries, you can use resources, you can use whatever you need to find the correct answer. But remember, you don't want the same answer as another person. So we have to be extra clever. So our categories are national capital, not country. This is the capital. So maybe you need to use the globe, or maybe you need to use the atlas or the internet, whatever you want. We have fruit or vegetable still. We have animal. We have a word that ends in ment. We have a word that ends in ness, like kindness. We have a word that ends in eyes. We have a word that ends in ly, like lee. And we have a word that ends in ubble. So let's see if we can do it. I will do it as well. I would like everybody to take their pens and pencils and try to write. How many words do we have? It looks like we have 8 words to write. Ready, set, go. Then I will ask for some volunteers to share their answers. I'm going to write on here. Ooh, all right. I'm already finished, but I will give everybody else some time, and then I will ask for some brave volunteers to show their answers. I hope we have some brave volunteers. Do we have anybody who is ready to share their answers? I see somebody is raising their hand. Mr. Jamyang, is that you? Jamyang Geltsen? You can unmute. You can unmute Mr. Jang Myang and tell me your answers because I cannot see.
National capital Canberra.
Canberra.
Fruit or vegetable cucumber and carrot.
Well, we can only choose one. So how about cucumber?
Catchment.
Animal, cat. Cat.
Sorry, La. Catchment.
Carelessness.
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 Categorize. Carefully. Capable. Last.
Oh my goodness, Mr. Jamyang. We have a lot of the same ones, but I will show you later. I will show you later. Do we have a second volunteer? Thank you very much, Mr. Jamyang. Second volunteer, is this Kina? How do I pronounce correctly?
Thank you so much.
So could we have Kina share their answers, please?
Okay, so the first one is Canberra, Australia. That one.
Okay, we have another Canberra. What
Carrots.
about vegetable? Carrots.
Cougar.
Cougar.
Compliment.
Oh, I spelled it wrong. Sorry.
Greatness.
Pardon?
Greatness.
Oh, I think, does that start with a C?
No. Greatness. Great.
Oh, but we have to have words that start with the letter C.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So I will just leave this one blank. So this
Okay.
game is really helpful for me. You saw that I spelled cougar wrong before. So this is good for teachers too, because I get to practice my spelling because I sometimes make mistakes. So do you have a word for eyes? I-Z-E?
Colonize. Colonize. Colonize.
Perfect. And L-Y?
Sicily.
Sicily?
Oh, it's from S. No, Sicily. S from S. Sorry, that one was wrong.
Do we have one that starts with C? Okay, let's do ubble. Do you have an ubble word?
Comfortable.
Comfortable. Perfect. So we have one last brave person. I see Lundup. Could we have Lundup share their answers, please? Thank you so much, Kina.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, La. Thank you so much. Do you have a capital for us?
Cairo.
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 And then for fruits and vegetables?
Canberry.
Cranberry. For animal?
Camel.
Camel. MENT.
Contentment.
Pardon?
Contentment.
Oh,
Contentment.
contentment. Beautiful. NESS.
Calmness.
Calmness. IZE.
Characterize.
Wonderful choice. LY.
Clearly.
Clearly. And finally, an ubble word.
Commendable.
Commendable. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lundu.
Thank you so much.
So what
Welcome,
great
sir.
participation. So this game, I wish we could do more, but we only have space for 3 teams, it looks like, on our pretend board. The reason I like this game is hopefully you can feel the critical thinking that you have to do. You have constraints. Some audio feedback. Oh, can everybody hear me? Okay, so the reason I like this game is we have to do a lot of critical thinking to find the correct answers. We have to do creative problem solving. And we can also use resources like the dictionary. We don't need to memorize everything anymore, but we can teach this skill to our students, and the students love this game. And I personally have learned so much vocabulary, so much spelling, and it's helped me as a teacher a lot. And you can see the students improve their vocabulary so much. So we will score this to see who wins, and then I will show you my answers. I think we have some of the same answers. So it looks like 2 people had Canberra. Unfortunately, we have to be clever. We can't have the same word as another team, so no points. And these are all different. Perfect. These are all different, all different, all different. All right, that looks pretty good. So this team has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 points. Oops. 7 points. Here we have 5 points. And here, ooh, it looks like the winner is Lundup, team 3. Ooh, and I spelled commendable wrong. There we go. Oh, they have 8 points. So in class, I like to play this game maybe once a week, and I do maybe 3 or 4 rounds in class if we have time. Sometimes I give prizes like stickers or marker pens, something like that. But this is a great activity for students, even more advanced students at the high school age. Sometimes you can make very difficult categories for the students. So the words that I had were, I had Copenhagen, which is the capital of Denmark. I had cauliflower, so I still get that point, yes. I had cobra, I had containment, I had carelessness. Oh, but I don't get that because somebody else had it. And then capsize, which is like when a boat turns over. Calmly, did somebody else do calmly? And then capable, oh, yes. Mr. Jamyang, you and I had a lot of the same words. So that is an example of Scattergories. I really enjoy Scattergories. It's a great classroom activity. And let me make this larger. So why is Scattergories a good example of creative problem solving in the classroom? So the students use their knowledge and resources to solve a problem for which there's many solutions. Remember, I mentioned many solutions before. We don't have only one solution, we have many possible solutions. And this game is designed to improve spelling and vocabulary and to emphasize collaboration, because this is usually a group game and students learn so much from each other. And this is to cultivate a supportive classroom environment. Because remember, I mentioned mixed ability classrooms. This is a challenge for teachers in Bhutan. When we're dealing with mixed ability classrooms, how do we do activities? How do we do evaluations? It can be very complicated for us teachers. So activities like Scattergories, they're very inclusive, and it means that everybody can learn. The next game I'm going to play is almost like Scattergories, but it's a little bit different because we're doing math instead. I know some people are afraid of math, and I'm afraid of math sometimes too, but that's okay. We're going to give it a try. So the goal of this game is to improve mathematical reasoning, and just like Scattergories, I like to do this with class 4 and above. And again, we have the tools, the blackboard, the chalk, the pens, the paper, and calculator. If you have it, you can use a calculator for this game. I need a calculator for this game. It can be quite challenging. And I usually give about 10 to 15 minutes per round. So again, just like Scattergories, we divide our classroom into teams. And then we choose, instead of categories, we don't choose categories, we choose numbers and we choose operators. So we have our numbers, of course, we have 0 through 9. And then we have our operators, we have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, exponent, and factorial. I will review these again just in case, because I have sometimes problems remembering the details. So let's look at our operators. This is just standard arithmetic that we learn. So of course we have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and there are different ways to write division. In computer programming, we often use the slash, so I like to use the slash. And then again, exponent, sometimes we use this, is called a caret. I think it's spelled with a K though, I don't actually know. Or we could write it like this. This is, I'm sure you have seen in math classes, and this would be 6 times 6 times 6. Then we have factorial, which is not 6 times 6, it's 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So we go down all the numbers. So if we have 4 factorial, this is the exclamation point, this is the factorial. Then we have 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. But 6 factorial, the answer is 720. So if we're doing lots of math, it can be difficult. So I have no problem if my students want to use a calculator for this game because it can be quite challenging. So let's continue. This is how we set up the board. We're just going to have 3 teams like before. But instead of choosing a letter, we choose numbers and we choose operations. And here I chose 2, 3, 5, 6, and 2 9s because you can only use each number once, except for 9 because we have 2 9s. But we can use 2 one time, we can use 3 one time, we can use 5 one time. It's only 9 where we have 2. And it's same with the operators. We can use subtraction one time, we can use addition one time, we can use multiplication 2 times, we can use factorial one time, and we can use division one time, and we can do exponent one time. So let's try to do this. In our example, we have 57. I'll just do an example now, and then we can play together. So normally I give a number, and then students have 5 to 10 minutes to make an equation. You can also say it's impossible. Sometimes it is impossible. Sometimes you can't make an equation with the numbers and the operators. But again, this is an example of creative problem solving because there are different possible solutions. So let's look at what our imaginary classroom came up with. We have team 1, we have team 2, we have team 3. They did 6 times 9 plus 3. They did 5 factorial minus 6 or minus 9 times 6 plus 1. And then we have this one down here using 3 to the 2 plus 1. So this would be 3 to the 3rd power. So we'll go down and go through this. These are all actually equal to 57. So all of our students in this case are correct. When we're doing the actual scoring though, this is how we do it. We do 0 points for an incorrect answer, of course, and we have 1 point for a correct answer that other teams also have. So if you and another team have the same answer, that's okay, you still get 1 point. It's not like Scattergories where you get 0 points. You still get 1 point, but it's better to have a unique answer. If you have a unique answer that nobody else has, then you can have 2 points. So this game can be really tricky, and maybe we should give it a try. But let's do some more examples of scoring first. So we see everybody here has a unique answer, so they get 2 points. But now team 1 and team 2 have the same answer, 6 times 9 plus 3. So they each get 1 point, but team 3 still has a unique answer, so they get 2 points. And here team 2 said, oh, it's impossible. But look, team 1 and team 3, they could do it, so it's not impossible. They were wrong. Sometimes it is impossible, but in this case, yes, we can make 57. So let's play, and maybe we'll have 3 brave mathematician volunteers who will share their answers. And I sometimes have problems with math, so I use a calculator when I play this game. It's hard to remember factorials. And remember, we want unique answers. We want to try to be very clever with the way that we use numbers. So I'm going to again have Mr. Tenzing, I will escape. Mr. Tenzing, could you choose maybe 5 or 6 digits for us?
Sure. Let's go 6,
6,
7,
6, 7,
3.
3.
And is it okay if they repeat or you
Yep.
prefer? Let's go with another 6.
Another 6.
And a 5.
And a 5. And I'm just gonna add a 1 just in case, so that we have more options. And then, Mr. Tenzing, can you choose a bigger number for us? Maybe 2 or even 3 digits?
Let's go with 101.
Ooh,
Is that a tricky one?
I think that's a good choice. All right, everybody, I'm going to ask for some volunteers in a little bit, but you need to use these numbers and these operations to make 101. Can it be done? Probably. Let's find out. Try to be very clever with the way you use your numbers, because you get more points if you have a unique answer. So I will make this number bigger, 101, and I will try too. I will have some mistakes, I'm sure. But let's take a couple minutes and try to make 101 with our numbers and with our operations. And I always use a calculator for factorials. They're difficult. Remember, factorial is like 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 if we have 5 factorial. And if you type into Google just factorial, 5 factorial, for example, it will tell you the answer. This is a tricky one. I'm having trouble too.
We can only use the numbers once, correct? And
Yeah,
numbers and
we can only
operations?
use the numbers once. Yep, same with operations. We can only use them once. Should I make it easier? Maybe I will add one number and one operation. I bet one of us can figure it out though. This is challenging, but it's almost always possible.
It looks like we have 2 suggestions in the chat and 1 raised
Oh,
hand.
excellent. So
2 raised hands, rather.
So it looks like I'm going to choose first the person with all of the numbers and letters. It looks like 1 HPDVMYSJB3EOX. If this person could share their answer, please. Oh, no. Would Kina like to share their answer?
The theory. Then it fractionally.
Or do we have an answer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's see what you got.
Okay. First one is bracket 5 exponent 3.
5 exponent 3.
Bracket close.
Okay.
Minus double bracket 7 times 3.
7 times 3.
Bracket plus 1.
Okay,
Bracket.
let's see what we got. So I can copy paste this into Google usually, and it will show me the answer. Oh, so close, so close. 103, 103 it looks like. Did I copy it correctly?
Raised to 3.
Okay, then, let me try again now.
Okay, that's okay. This one is really hard. Mr. Tenzing likes to make things difficult. So what I'm going to do for everybody is add 2 more. I will add 1 more subtraction and 1 more and a 2 for everybody to use. So I will scratch this. Does anybody else have an answer they'd like to share? How about Mr. Kamyan?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
So could Mr. Jamyang share his answer?
5 factorial.
5
Factorial in minus
minus
bracket
Bracket.
open 6 plus 7 plus
Oh, we just have one plus though.
mid.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, sir.
This is tricky. So I added 1 more subtraction operator. I added 2, so hopefully that will make it easier. Does anybody else have an example? How about Sewang? Can you share your example? Hello? Or Mr. Kunzang, would you like to share? Oh, hello, Sewang, would you like to share your answer? Sewang Rinzin? Oh, that's okay. Galaxy A20s?
Hello.
Robot sounds, many robot sounds. Well, this was quite a difficult question. It looks like we have some people raising. What about admin? Would admin like to share their answer? Or if you want to share some of your answers in the chat, that's okay as well. This is quite a challenging game. And in the classroom, when we are working as teams, it's usually a little bit smoother to do in practice. But I always have a lot of fun playing this game with students, and it's helped me with my mathematical skills a lot. Do we have any final answers?
Sir.
Yep.
I have an answer. So
Yes.
can you hear me?
Factorial.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh. Hello.
Factorial.
Oh, it looks like we have 2 people talking. I'm just going to hear 1 person right now. Kunzang,
5 factorial.
Okay.
5 factorial plus oh, I think we just have a lot of people on this call. It's kind of complicated.
Sir, maybe I will try it, sir.
You want to type it?
Yeah. No, sir. I will try, sir. So 5
Okay.
factorial
5 factorial
minus,
minus,
open the bracket,
okay,
and 7 times 3,
7 times 3.
then close the bracket.
Yeah,
Sorry, sir. It's 6 times 3, sir.
that's okay.
6 times 3. Then after the bracket, we have minus again,
Okay,
1.
minus 1. So let's look at what Google has to say, because Google
Yes,
knows
sir.
all. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm clapping into the microphone. Congratulations, a beautiful answer. This is
Thank
a
you, sir.
very challenging game. And sometimes it's impossible to make an answer. And sometimes I have said myself, I said, oh, students, this is impossible. And then my students prove me wrong and they have an excellent answer that they came up all by themselves. So does anybody else have an example they would like to share, or is this the only answer we have?
So I would like to try for
So I
another
have
answer.
Nima
an answer
Wangdi?
too.
I will choose Nima Wangdi. I just see a
Okay,
lot.
sir. First, open the bracket.
Okay.
5 to the power 2
5 to the 2nd power
times 4.
times 4.
Close the bracket.
Or I should
Plus-
keep it all together. Okay.
+1.
Plus 1. Okay, well,
Sir, sir, could you please
it doesn't look like,
delete the second bracket lah?
well, it doesn't look like we have 4 in our list of numbers.
Okay, so sorry, sir. I have another answer also.
Oh, okay, let's try your other answer, Mr. Nima.
First, open the bracket.
Okay.
5 to the power 3 minus 7.
5 to the power 3
Power 3 minus 7.
minus 7.
Then close the bracket.
Okay.
Plus 6.
Plus 6. All right, let's see if this works. Uh-oh. Very, very close. Very close. Am I doing what you had in mind correctly? Well, we've had some very clever answers. We're going to go ahead and move on, okay? I'm sorry that many of you have answers to share, but it's a little bit difficult to share over Zoom. And I hope that you can see how in a classroom setting, this is a really great activity to get students to think about mathematical reasoning. Remember, I talked so much about the importance of mathematical reasoning. And remember, we're not just memorizing answers, we're forcing ourselves to solve problems. It's kind of a different feeling because we already know the answer is 101, so we have to work backwards. So if we go back to the presentation, so why is Mathetron a good example of a creative problem-solving game in the classroom? Well, again, we have many possible solutions. And this game is really good for mathematical reasoning, and it's also good for collaboration so that we have a collaborative classroom environment. So I wish I had more activities that we could play as a group, but instead I'm just going to do a demonstration of some other activities I do in class. I would love to play Scrabble with you guys. I'm sure you have heard of Scrabble before. It's such fun. This is an activity I frequently do in mixed ability classrooms because it helps with verbal reasoning. So what do you need? You need your Scrabble tiles and a blackboard and chalk. And what are Scrabble tiles? Well, you can make them yourself. I have made some from plastic. I have made some from wood. I have bought some on the internet. I have made some from chart paper. There are many different ways to make Scrabble tiles. And this is kind of what they look like. I'm sure you recognize them now. So I would say that you can make your own with chart paper and that you need to have the proper letter ratios because some letters we have more, like E. We have 12 E's for every 100. And then for Z, we have 1 out of 100 for Z. So I would say for every 5 students, you need about 100 tiles, and you can make them out of chart paper. It's actually a very fun activity to do in class. The students will enjoy using their geometry boxes to measure out all the different tiles. And then we can play the game. So again, we divide the classroom into teams. I usually divide the Scrabble tiles between the students in a way that doesn't make them get very angry and say, oh, but sir, he has more time, she has more time because you gave them first. So I usually go, okay, 10, 10, 10, 10, give 10 to each, and then go around again, give 10 to each, just so there's no drama in the classroom. And I also like to make special rules for Scrabble where I give extra points. For example, they would get extra points for a GHT verb like fought or bought, extra points for adjectives or ly adverbs like pleasantly. And then they have about 30 minutes to make as many words as possible as a team. I want them to work together as a team for this. So how do you play? Well, you have to make words, but what do we have here? We have fan going down, but we have fan going backwards. So we cannot do backwards words. We can only go top down and right to left. We also have the situation where all of the letters that touch, they need to make words. So on is a word, but O is not a word unless we're speaking French, but we are not speaking French. So in this case, the only words that work, we have fan and we have fan, animal, cat, man, ant, but That's a very simple example, but this is how we score the game. And if I am playing with a classroom, if I'm playing classroom Scrabble, I usually just like to count all of the letters to get their points. And then sometimes I give extra points for the special rules. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So this player would get 16 points. And Scrabble is so famous all around the world among students, among people of all backgrounds, and among old ladies as well. The old American ladies, they love to play Scrabble. My grandmother and I would play Scrabble sometimes. But it's a great verbal reasoning game. And maybe the next Scrabble champion will come from Bhutan. So many of my students are so good at Scrabble because we would maybe play it once a week in the class. And they got very, very good at it. And when you are playing Scrabble with students, it's important to walk around the classroom and correct their mistakes. First of all, it looks like some students are very immature and using inappropriate words, but that's okay as long as they're doing good spelling. But we have Saturday is spelled wrong. We have puppies is spelled wrong. So as the teacher, you need to go around to the classroom and make sure all the students are spelling things right. So you don't need to scold anybody, no scolding. Just say, ooh, that looks like it's spelled wrong. Or maybe you need to add an extra P to puppies, and then the students will try to solve the problem. So I try to give them guidance when they're playing this game. There's no memorizing, no scolding. There's working together. There's improving vocabulary. I think this is a great picture because it shows how we can use Scrabble for mixed ability classrooms. One of my students in this class, he was so clever. Look at this long word he made, confidentiality. He also made a representation. It's very impressive words for such a young man. I also had a student in the same team who had a very serious reading problem. It was very difficult for him to read fluently. So what he would do during this game is he would go, eel, 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 eel. He remembered how to spell eel, which is the type of sea animal that swims like a snake. He could spell this word, but it was very difficult for him to do bigger words. But because we are a community in our classroom, we like to do inclusive activities. So even our brilliant students who know big words can play together, can do a game together with students who have reading problems. Everybody can participate. And I think that's very important for Bhutanese values is inclusion, participation, collaboration. So why is Scrabble a good example of creative problem solving in the classroom? Well, again, there are many possible solutions, and you can use resources. You can use a dictionary. The students are looking through books to find the best choice. And this game is very good for spelling and vocabulary. And I also like that students learn from each other. When we are at the front of the classroom, sometimes things go in one ear and out the other for the students. They hear us talk all the time, but they listen to their peers. If we can do activities where all the students are listening to their peers, learning from their peers, we can create a more collaborative, more harmonious classroom environment. And I think that's very important for Bhutan. So the last game that I would like to explain is Grammar Scrabble. And it's almost like Scrabble, except we use grammar concepts instead of spelling concepts. So same instructions almost, we have to make our Grammar Scrabble tiles. So regular Scrabble, standard Scrabble, you can buy factory made or you can make your own. But Grammar Scrabble is something kind of invented by me and some colleagues, some teacher colleagues. So it's very similar. I will talk about the tiles that we make momentarily, but you divide your teams, you divide up the tiles, and you can also make special rules, but we'll do that differently. And these are what they looked like. So these are students in Rangjung, in Trashigang, and they became experts in Grammar Scrabble. Let me talk about the different tiles we have. We have pronouns. We must have our pronouns. We have our modal verbs like can, will, could, would, might, must. All those are modal verbs. We have our auxiliary verbs. And then we have V1, V2, V3, V4, V5. I will explain what that means in a moment. And then we have our other words like today, tomorrow, yesterday. And I also like to leave a lot of blank words with stars so students can choose any word that they want for their Grammar Scrabble. So what does V1, V2, V3, V4, V5 mean? Oh, those are the verb forms. I just think it's an easier way to talk about verbs if we have this type of vocabulary. So what does it mean? V1 is the infinitive, like eat, swim, play. V2 is the third person present simple singular. It's too difficult to remember what it's actually called, so I just call it V2. So it's like he eats, he swims, she plays. We have V3, and that we call that the gerund, or we call that the present participle, and that's with ing. And then we have V4, which is the past simple, like ate, swam, played. And then we have V5, which is the past participle, like eaten or swum or played. And if we are speaking very fluent English, if we're very good readers of English, we should know all of our irregular verbs like ate, eaten, things like that. So when we're playing this game, it's kind of like Scrabble, except we do it a little bit differently. We're making sentences instead of words. And we don't need every word exactly. We have V4, V5, these V, the verb forms, and we can fill them in with our minds. I usually ask the students to explain it to me like so. So we change the words a little bit. When they are explaining to me, instead of saying V4, they usually say a verb like swim or eat or play. So let's look here. Let's see how they did when they're making their sentences. This is our imaginary students who made a grammar Scrabble for us to check. So I am eating today. That is good. Eating is fun. That's fine. This is V3 normally, but I just changed it to eating for an example. Could he have been eaten? Yep, that's actually correct grammar. It's kind of a complicated structure. She have eaten. Ooh, we can't say that. We can't say she have. And we can't say ate eaten. That's not a sentence. So it looks like that will be a mistake. They had eaten and we are happy. That's a perfectly fine sentence. Are you purple? Strange, but it's a sentence. That's fine. You is purple. This is improper English, so this would not be correct. So if we change it, these would be wrong. These would be wrong. We can't say you is. We can't say she have. We can't say V4, V5. So we would remove those, and this would be our final grammar Scrabble that we check with the students. So I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Looks like about 17 points for this team. So I love to teach this game. It's so much fun, and the students work together and they work really hard to improve their grammar. And it's very strange to think, wow, these students are having such a good time talking about verbs and talking about modal verbs and structure. I think it's wonderful, but they're having a very, very good time. And as you can see, and even in the rural areas, they became quite good at this game. It seems kind of complicated at first, but my class 6 students were experts by the end of the year. They were teaching me so many things. So this type of game is great for a mixed ability classroom because they can work together. And this is also a game with many possible solutions. There's no easy answer. We work together to find good solutions. So my main conclusions of this talk is that the world is changing and school systems that emphasize creative problem solving are doing a better job preparing students for a changing world. So that's the first point I wanted you to remember. Remember, this technological change we are experiencing with the internet is creating a lot of challenges for us educators as we deal with the changing world. So in order to improve students' literacy and mathematical reasoning skills, we create opportunities for creative problem solving in the classroom. And these are a great complement to traditional classroom activities. I'm not asking that you change your classroom activities. I just want you to think, when I'm planning my classroom activities, can I include creative problem solving? And just a reminder that when we're doing creative problem solving in the classroom, we have multi-solution problems. Remember, there's never just one answer. We need many answers. That's what makes us feel creative. That's when we're engaging the part of our brain that uses creativity. And it's also good to have multiple resources like dictionaries or calculators, and then to emphasize collaboration. We're in it together. We are all working as a team. So the games that I showed you for mixed ability classrooms were Scattergories, Mathetron, and the 2 different types of Scrabble. These are great because they're collaborative, they're very fun, and I have learned so much from my students when we play these games. It's hard to believe that this unusual American guy has learned so many English words from young Bhutanese students, but it's true. And it's because we played games like Scattergories. We played many different games that helped me in my own English language. And I'm very impressed by Bhutanese students for being able to do this. And then my last note is that teaching is a very difficult job, but we must create opportunities for our students. As teachers, that is our duty. But when we are creating opportunities for our students, we are also learning ourselves. Nobody's finished learning. I'm not done learning English. I'm not done learning math. We have a lifelong learning process, and it's never going to end, and we need to embrace that. We need to embrace this lifelong learning. We need to embrace how much we can learn from our students, and we need to create opportunities for our students, but in doing so, we create opportunities for ourselves. So I hope you enjoyed my talk about creative problem solving in the classroom. And this is part of the series about 21st century education. Thank you so much, La Tashdile. And we can